the way Kaunda's passing was covered in the mainstream press actually sort of brought a lot of these issues together, Sean, just some of the coverage of Kaunda.
More like just how somebody I think on Twitter said we should decolonize obituaries. And I'd like to hear from Grieve about actually from Grieve we want to hear about how Zambians remember Kaunda's legacy, how Africans remember him. Because what we get is when somebody like Kaunda dies, you have, a lot of us run to like the New York Times, the Guardian, maybe the Financial Times, which a lot of people, kind of swear by. But what was interesting about their obituaries was they ran, in the case of the Times, they had an obituary written by somebody who died in 2010. The person who wrote the obituary about Kaunda died in 2010. And then the person who wrote the obituary for The Guardian died in January last year. Now, people are saying that obituaries are written sometimes, like, you write them and you have them ready because it's like a famous person. But I'm assuming you have to kind of imagine that the way that you taught about Kaunda in 2010 is very different from how you, I think of Kaunda now, because on Grieve can, in a couple of minutes, he could say something about this. So Zambia is now governed by this guy called Edgar Lungu, who is definitely was no Kaunda. So I don't know how you can write in 2010 and how you write now. But then the other one is the FT had its obituary written by Michael Holman, who is generally considered a pretty decent journalist. But in his obituary, the obituary was like, it was kind of petty in a way. I was like, what is up with this obituary? Making fun of Kaunda has like this kind of white handkerchief that he would wave. So he made like fun of that. He went on about how Kaunda was like sort of almost like it didn't matter what Kaunda's political stance was on U.S. foreign policy or on kind of all the proxy states or proxy movements operating in Southern Africa for the apartheid state, or his contribution to the liberation of all these countries in the region. He was sort of like a paper tiger. But the worst thing was he ended the piece with a kind of anecdote about how Kaunda spoke at Mandela's funeral in 2013. And people remember this because we've tweeted this clip. It's Kaunda, like, I think he's 89 or something at that point, running on the stage. I literally jogging, if you see it. Like he waits, and then when they give him his cue that it's his time to go onto the stage, he just like does like this little fast jog and everybody applauds. And anyway, so according to Michael Holman, he then sang a song, which it's terrible that I know forgetting the title now because it's a famous kind of song associated with Kaunda. It's about liberation and sort of associated with his political party. And he says Kaunda started to sing the song and nobody knew the words. And this was an indication of how out of touch Kaunda and Mandela was with the world that they made. And you just like, hold up. I was like, I think Will sent me the Will's like, yo, bro, did you see this? I think that was what you probably implied. So I was like, let me go look at that video again. And there I saw the video. What does Kaunda do? He runs on the stage. It's obvious that there's a lot of warmth between him and the audience. They love, people love Kaunda. I mean, come on, this is Southern Africa. He then starts the song. Some people in the audience join in, and he jokingly says, oh, I think you guys have forgotten the words. Kind of like a joke about time and age and all that. And then he stops, and he continues with his speech, which has a lot of jokes in it, lots of references. But with some people, he referred to like the negotiations between the Afrikaners and the ANC. I mean, he went on. It was real funny and so on. And when he was done, he got a standing ovation. And I was like, what speech or event did Michael Holman write about? He obviously just made that up, as people would say, like cloth. Like, it never existed. I think we're showing
there it is.
The video on the screen. I mean, there's, it was a little jog. And this whole thing, he gets applauded. So in any case, I mean, this is not so, there's a little bit of, I don't want to say Michael Holman committed fake news because I don't want to do that. I'm just thinking he was trying to make a point, which I was also complaining on Twitter that you would never see, Kaunda was never as terrible as Churchill. or the kind of war crimes and things that Reagan had made himself guilty of, the lying, the clandestine funding of all kinds of movements in whether it was in South America or whatever. The paragraph is right at the end of this piece that's scrolling up on our screen. But in any case, I think that this captured very well. And the last point about this is somebody pointed out on Twitter is that then the African publications would merely repeat this kind of journalism. So I think somebody tweeted at us, called Sumtos Pile. I don't know him, but he has a very sharp Twitter presence. He pointed out, for example, that the Sunday Times in South Africa had their obituary written by own correspondent. And what did own correspondent do? Which is, I think it's like a sub-editor or something, or the night reporter. Basically just quoted from the New York Times, the Guardian, and the FT.